To next order of the day, which is private members' business.
President,
Honourable Peter Foster.
I move that the Legislative Council A notes the recent tragic and avoidable deaths in workplaces within Western Australia. B recognises that all workers should be able to go to work and return home safely. And C expresses its condolences to the families and loved ones of those who have died.
Members, the question is that the motion standing in his name be agreed. The Honourable Peter Foster.
Thank you, Acting President. I rise today, and with this motion I do so somberly and with sadness. As members may be aware in this House, in the past 4 weeks there have been 4 incidents in Western Australia workplaces which have resulted in fatalities. These include Takeo Tiarori, a crane operator who was involved in a fall at a construction site in Applecross on the 2nd of June 2023. Anthony Woods, a police officer who was allegedly struck by a motor vehicle in Ascot on the 8th of June 2023. Kieran McDowell, a labourer who was struck by a mobile plant on a mining tenement near Onslow on the 12th of June 2023. Hamiora Sharland, a 16-year-old labourer who was struck by an object in manufacturing premises on the 15th of June 2023. A further incident resulting in the death of Michael Yerman, a rope access technician at Woodside's North Rankin complex, approximately 135 k's northwest of Karratha, occurred on the 2nd of June 2023. I understand that this particular incident is being investigated by the National Offshore Petroleum and Safety and Environmental Management Authority, who are the particular regulator. Furthermore, I understand that WorkSafe are currently investigating these incidents, and so therefore it is not appropriate for us to comment on the specific aspects as investigations are ongoing. I would like to pause here and extend my sincere condolences to the families, friends and work colleagues for the irreplaceable loss of their loved ones. No family should ever have to go through the loss that they are experiencing. Every worker, and I say that again, every worker has the fundamental right to return home from work safely every day and be safe at work every single day. I know that safety and health of workers remains a high priority for the Cook Labor government. Safety of work is of particular interest to me as one of the members in this place for the mining and pastoral region. The mining and pastoral region, as we know, is home to many mining and other resource operations, agriculture, pastoral, fishing, transport and construction. And it's in some of these workplaces that the fatalities have occurred. This is why I wanted to move this motion this week. A workplace death does have a long-lasting effect on a person's family, work colleagues and the company's reputation. I call on all workplaces to ensure their workplace is safe, such as reviewing and updating health and safety policies and procedures, conducting safety audits to identify potential hazards and safety risks, reviewing all safety systems and controls to ensure their effectiveness, offer regular health and safety training sessions and advice to all of their employees, ensuring all employees are adequately qualified and trained for the roles that they are performing, preparing, filing and reviewing records on workplace health and safety, reviewing insurance coverage for their companies, and fostering a proactive approach to safety cultures at work. I want to join with the Premier last week who said, "I know that there's a strong culture of safety in the Pilbara right through all our heavy industries. We must always continue to remind ourselves that we need to make safety an absolute priority." Like many in Western Australia, my partner works in the mining industry in Tom Price and has done so for the past 15 years. He works in an iron ore processing plant where the iron ore is crushed, screened, depending on whether it's high grade or low grade. It can be crushed down further, washed, sized, and then it is stockpiled into whether it's lumps or fines before it is loaded onto trains and headed off to the coast. This work involves multiple pieces of machinery and equipment, such as crushers, screens, drums, magnetic separators, cyclones, spirals, conveyors, stackers, trippers. The list does go on. Potential injuries that can take place include being crushed or entangled, falling from heights, vehicle impacts, exposure to hazardous substances, exposure to dust and fumes, contact with electricity, thermal extremes. Again, the list goes on. Over 160,000 Western Australians work in the mining industry, and I know that my partner alone is not alone in regards to his exposure to workplace risk. And like many other Western Australians, I want my loved ones to come home safe at the end of every shift. I'm sure us here in the House today, we all want this. We are a mining state, a state that digs things up, and we benefit from the workers who do so. So we must never forget those workers who are on the front line. Safety on site, be it in mining, construction, manufacturing, our ports or in agriculture, workplace safety must be every single employer's first, number one priority. I'd like to quote Brad Gandy, who's the Australian Worker Union State Secretary. He recently said, "Every worker deserves to come home to their families at the end of their shift. Unfortunately, this is the fourth fatality on a Western Australian mine in just 12 months. Despite repeated calls to improve industry safety, culture and overall workplace safety standards. Mining is an inherently dangerous industry and safety should be the highest priority for the sector, from workers to employers to state to federal governments. One death is one too many. This has to stop." In Tom Price, we have a memorial garden where friends and family can apply to the Shire to place a plaque in remembrance of their loved one. One of those plaques belongs to Lee Buzzard. Lee was a diesel fitter who spent his childhood in Tom Price before moving to Karratha and later to Paraburdoo. Sadly, he was killed in a mining accident near Paraburdoo on the 19th of June 2016. This tragedy was felt across both Tom Price and Paraburdoo, and I have strong memories of the sadness and worry that was felt at the time by the many mining families. I joined with family, friends and work colleagues on the second anniversary of his death in 2018, where the plaque was unveiled in the Memorial Garden. Attending this event reinforced to me that the loss to family, friends and work colleagues felt like following the passing of their loved one at work. I would like to acknowledge the strength of Lee's mum, Sharon Westerman, in particular for her support for the families who have lost loved ones in workplace accidents. Some of us may have met Sharon. Sharon regularly attends the Workers' Memorial over at Solidarity Park that was held recently on the 28th of April. And it's well attended by a number of members of this place, but also from Unions WA and a number of unions who are represented here in the West. We gathered there on that day to remember those who had passed, to lay flowers, but also to recommit ourselves to ensure all workers are safe at work and return home safely at the end of every shift. I've spoken in this House a number of times about the legacy of Wittenoom and the many lives that were lost as a result of the blue asbestos mining in my electorate. And I joined with Melita Markey on that day from the Asbestos Diseases Society of Australia to remember those who had passed in particular from that mining operation. And I support their efforts to establish a permanent memorial for the loved ones to be able to gather, grieve and reflect. Of those named in my contribution today in regards that have passed away at work, it is worrying to note that the majority were employed as contractors. The chain of command for contractors who are employed is often complex. And as a result of this complexity, it is more difficult for them to raise health and safety issues. Contractors are less likely to raise health and safety concern due to fears about being sanctioned or, even worse, lose their jobs. Contractors are also less likely to step forward to become safety representatives in their workplace or to actively participate in work safety meetings. This must change. In a recent article with the ABC, Professor Michael Quinlan at the Industrial Relations Research Centre at the University of New South Wales said, "It is well known that the use of contractors tends to undermine health and safety." As we all know, the mining sector is booming here in Western Australia, and so is their reliance on both contractors and casual workforces. What we see in a number of industries is that works are contracted out, then are subcontracted out, and then the subcontractors are left to find the workers. This in turn leads to a whole range of people who don't always have the skills, expertise or experience to be in that position at that particular time. The state government has undertaken significant reforms in an effort to improve safety for workers right across this state. This has included increasing funding to WorkSafe for additional inspectors and investigators, the introduction of the Work Health and Safety Act, which prioritises work, health and safety, which came into force in March 2022 and has been considered one of the largest regulatory reform projects ever completed here in WA. The Work Health Safety Act also encompasses provisions related to industrial manslaughter, which entails serious consequences. Violation of these provisions can lead to a maximum sentence of 20 years imprisonment for an individual and a fine of up to $10 million for a corporate entity. Western Australia's workplace laws and the WHS Act better protect workers, modernise safety laws and hold those responsible for workplace deaths. In closing, every worker has the fundamental right to return home from work safely every day and be safe at work every single day. I want to again express my sincere and deepest condolences to the families, the friends and the work colleagues for their irreplaceable loss of their loved ones. I commend the motion to the House.
The Honourable Peter Foster.
Thank you, Acting President. In reply, I would just like to thank and acknowledge the members of this House today who have risen to speak in support of the motion that I moved. In particular, I would like to acknowledge the Leader of the Opposition for his support for the motion. Safety at work is absolutely a cross-party issue, so we should all come together in support of any actions that we can take to encourage safe workplaces, to encourage safety at work. I would like to acknowledge first the Honourable Kyle McGinn for his contribution, in particular sharing his personal story about his workplace incident with us. I'm sure his particular incident is not an isolated incident. I'm sure those types of incidents happen quite regularly. I do acknowledge his comments around the importance of unions. I know that the Leader of the Opposition perhaps does not feel so strongly, but I absolutely support the work of unions. I've been a union worker my whole life. My partner has been. I come from a family of proud union members. I think that we need them in our community to keep our workers at work safe. I do want to acknowledge just a couple of unions, because in Tom Price we've got quite a number of mining operations, and in particular I'd like to acknowledge the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union, the Electrical Trades Union, the CFMEU and also the Australian Workers Union. I often met up with the organisers when they were travelling through Tom Price. no MUA in Tom Price, no ports, and I spoke to them very regularly about the concerns they had about workplace safety, and I could see quite actively the work that they were doing. I would just in the last remaining 40 seconds acknowledge the contribution of the Honourable Lorna Harper. Thank you for your passion in terms of workers' rights and staying safe at work. I did acknowledge the Honourable Dr Steve Thomas in regards to supporting the motion. I don't necessarily think we were trying to vilify employers, but employers do have a responsibility to keep their staff safe at work. Thank you to the Honourable Matt Swinburne for giving the government response. It's great to see there's a lot of focus in this particular area. And lastly, acknowledge the contribution of the Honourable Ayor McCaw-Chewat for her contribution as well.